Hi, everyone. This is Ramesh here, your organizational change strategist. Today, I want to talk to you about an important leadership issue. It's called perception gaps. What does it mean in a nutshell? It's when you, as the leader, are communicating with your team, but it feels like people are not either getting it or there could be a reverse effect to whatever you have shared. And I want to kind of break this down and look at how you, as a leader, can actually improve. But before that, why is this perception gap really a big deal? I want you to imagine you're piloting a ship, right? Your team, charting a course to go to this amazing, beautiful treasure island. But your crew actually thinks you're headed towards the Bermuda Triangle, or even worse, at the back of their mind, they think this boat is going to crash. It's going to be chaotic, right? So this is the kind of like turmoil perception gaps can actually create within the teams. It's not just this. A lot of people mistake, perception gaps as just misunderstandings. But really, these gaps are a lot more severe and they lead to major trust issues, which then in turn kind of drives down the engagement and then productivity. And then turnover goes up and you have all the other mess. So today we want to look at how we can be more in sync with our teams and why nailing this communication thing is really quite non-negotiable. So before we get into the how to do it, I want to talk to you about the 3 types of perception gaps that you might be currently doing or encountering. The first one is called reality versus expectation. This is when there is really a disconnect between what you as a leader say and how people actually perceive it. An example. So there are leaders who talk about the open door policy, but when the door is either always shut or the leader gets really angry or frustrated that people don't, schedule it in the calendar before they talk to the person, then it's really, a situation where the team is like left with their, scratching their head, right? Like you said it's open door, but it really isn't. So just one example, right? Where the reality and the expectation, they don't align. The second perception gap, which is quite common, is self versus others' perception. So you might do an initiative, right? Or you might kind of like communicate to your team in a particular way, like the next Steve Jobs. So amazing. But the people on the ground could be actually perceiving it more as if you are Miranda Priestley. And for those of you who don't know who that is, please watch The Devil Wears Prada. So that's a gap, right? How you think you come across and how people actually perceive you. The third type of perception gap is called intention versus impact. Have you ever told a joke or said something in a meeting where it kind of offended people or you went the wrong way? And then, we kind of like brush it aside and say, you got to just be cool about it. But really, this is where intention and impact don't align. Let me share with you an example. So there was this general manager that I worked with, and he had a big problem with engagement. So the HR person called me in, said, what can I do with the team? And one of the examples, the anecdotes that she shared that really I remembered after all these years is the bonding session for everyone. And then it led to them at the end of the day going to a karaoke bar, which is quite popular in Singapore, where people just sing. And he didn't sing for a very long time, and everybody was like egging him on, like, hey, come on, boss, you organized this, why don't you go sing? And he went up and he put, his favorite go-to karaoke song, and most of us have that, right? And the song he chose was a pretty old song. It's called My Way. And in that song, there's one lyric that comes up which says, I did it my way. And boy, oh boy, everybody was like rolling their eyeballs and they were like, oh my, this song is really like him. So, the intention of the boss was to probably, just have people chill out, have some camaraderie and things like that. But it turned out to be people just watching him and scrutinizing him. And so the intention was good, but the impact, on the other hand, could be less desirable. Addressing these gaps isn't just about, avoiding the missteps. And I don't think we will ever come to a situation where we can get rid of perception gaps. We just have to be very aware that they always exist, and we need to be careful about it and take action steps so that it doesn't become a massive problem. So this in turn, what is the benefit, right? I believe it leads to a thriving team, a more engaged team, and a more harmonious work environment. And you as a leader can actually do all of these things. So here is the practical part, which I promised you at the beginning of this video. What are some of the practical things you can do? Number 1, commit to regular, meaningful conversations, which I'm sure a lot of you, if you're in a leadership role in a large organization, you already do frequent one-on-one conversations with your team members. And this is an opportunity for you to make sure that you are communicating and that you're listening, right, fully. So I like Stephen Covey's seek to understand before being understood. So instead of always wanting people to understand me, I would really want to understand others. Even if I disagree with what they're saying, I would like to understand why they say what they say. People usually have a reason for saying that. So here's a quick hack. If you ever come to a situation where someone is saying something and you really don't agree with it, a good sentence to use is, I'm quite sure you have your reasons for why you have this perspective or position. I would like to hear more. So in a meeting, you might say something like this. I would love to get your take on this. How do you see this situation? Firstly, it's very empowering. It's flattering. I would love to share my take, and people are always ready to give their take on something. And then remind yourself, this is a personal reminder, is there a gap between what I'm trying to convey and what's actually being understood in the team, and how can I bridge that? The second thing that you can do is to cultivate a culture of openness and feedback. This word culture, for some leaders that I've worked with, it gives them an allergic reaction because it's not something tangible. It's not something that you can point your finger at and say, oh, that's really culture. Culture are the unspoken things, is the things that people think about, the way, the values. It's invisible, but yet it's very palpable, if you know what I mean, right? And every country, every company, every industry, every department has their own sort of like micro culture, which we can compare with like the organizational cultures like climate, and then the micro cultures can be considered to be like the weather. And what is a culture for, right? It's help people to thrive, to feel healthy. They feel like they can contribute, and there's some meaningfulness to work. And the team feels comfortable sharing their thoughts and feedback. This is really important. This openness provides really valuable insights into how your actions and decisions are perceived. In a meeting, right? How can you encourage this? So your honest feedback is crucial for our growth. I love this sentence, right? Your honest feedback is crucial for our growth. What are your thoughts on this? So sometimes, you might be seeing someone a little quiet in the team. So you might just, give them the opportunity to share what they think about something, whether they agree. And it's a lot of coaching. It's a lot of supporting. And I've seen, individuals who usually in a meeting like have nothing to say. And over time, because of the constant, nudging and positivity in the environment, people do start to share, and they feel like, yeah, it's okay to share, and it's important to not compliment the content of what they share. Not like, oh, that was a great idea, but really just the act of sharing, because that is going to amplify that behavior and kind of like send a signal to everyone else. What we are really focusing on is the participation rather than just having the correct answers. A great strategy, which you can use also with kids, right? So how can we reflect personally as a leader? Am I fully considering the feedback that I've received? Are you good at getting feedback? If you're like any normal person, when feedback is given to you, especially the context and who it's sharing it from, your own grievances about that environment or whatever that has happened, we can get activated and we can get defensive. The key is, knowing that you can't remove the defensiveness, but to become aware that, oh yeah, I do become defensive. And that's my reaction. And it's best not to act from reaction, right? It is best to give it some time, allow it to simmer down, if it's a really, attacking type of feedback, and then respond to it in the best way possible, right? So that's something good. The next one is to embrace and champion diversity. So this other topic, right? Diversity, equity topic has been going around and in different regions, different places. So it's one thing to talk about it. And then there's another thing about really understanding, because we are diverse, because we come from different parts of the world, different life experiences, we are going to perceive things quite differently. So let me give you an example of this. So one of the companies I worked with, they were headquartered in France, and they were planning to open a bigger, more grand office in Singapore. They were expanding their Asian footprint, and they wanted Singapore office to become much bigger. So they have this, the office plans looked amazing, right, compared to their old office. However, they chose a date to sort of like open the office. And that date did not sit well with the Singapore team. And a lot of the members in the Singapore team, they were of Chinese ethnicity, and they were not happy. And the French team couldn't understand why the Singapore team was so reluctant, hesitant. They were not really enthusiastic, like, let's do this. And what do you think the date the French team chose? It was the first day of the Hungry Ghost Festival. So if you know anything about the Chinese culture, or if you have friends who are Chinese, they will tell you, right, that the Hungry Ghost Festival isn't a particularly auspicious time to do anything new, like buying a new house, getting married, or opening an office, a place where people are going to work every single day. So this is really a difference in cultural, dimensions, right? Like people perceive it differently. But to brush it aside, because there was one person in the French team who said this is superstition, and so the intention, I don't know, was it to really attack? But maybe it was just an observation from their perspective. But the impact was people really got offended, right? Like, how can you say our traditions, our culture are superstitious? And that really caused a lot of havoc. And that led to, unfortunately, some turnover in the organization because they felt so disrespected. So we need to really think about, in perception gaps, right? Like, how can I get the perspectives within the team, which may not always gel together or people may not work together? It's tough. It's really tough. It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of work. Because let me offer the alternative, right, where we don't have all of this diversity. You're not going to really be having an environment of creativity and innovation, because what you will have is what we will call a echo chamber effect, right? Where everybody just says the same thing. Like, imagine you go to a big, big hall with nothing inside, and then you just say ha or something like that, right? And then your voice gets amplified. There's this resonance, makes the person feel so grand. But the reason why it sounded so amazing is because there was nothing in the room, right? It was an empty space. So what diverse discussions can we bring, diverse insights we can bring into the discussion, I think is important to think about and to also bring into the team. A self-reflection for yourself as a leader is, am I genuinely fostering diversity, or am I at a risk of creating an echo chamber? Am I hiring a lot of people who are like mini versions of me, and am I rewarding that behavior? Because that sends a signal to the team, which is like, okay, I can't really be different. I need to kind of fit into how this leader would like things to be, and try to fit into their perception of the world. So addressing perception gaps is not just about smoothing over communication issues. It's more than that. It's about laying the foundation for a team that, really thrives on diverse ideas and inclusive practices, and knowing that they can detach their emotional reaction when they listen to something that does not sit with them, or it's not even something their mind can comprehend. I've often seen this, like, the social sciences, the psychological aspect of things, of life, versus the logical, the harder aspects of life. And sometimes when people meet, based on their training, there can really be a lot of clashes. Right. And so it's about really both sides being open to understanding that the other side have their reasons for why they say it. And it's not about one-manship and like, oh, I got higher authority than you. And so you want a culture where every voice is heard, it's valued, and it contributes to the collective success, isn't it? Right. So just to wrap all of these things up, dealing with perception gaps is crucial. Okay. I think that there's no question about it, right? Because it directly impacts the inclusivity and the diversity of your team. And you don't want a group where people are just echoing your own thoughts and ideas. And that's something I call that toxic yes-manship, right? This not only limits creativity and innovation, but it really suffocates everyone from having the potential for growth and development. Life is messy. Life is chaotic. People are messy. People are chaotic. They're going to have different perspectives. So when you're dealing with perception gaps, you have to be just vigilant about this. And recognizing and addressing them is really, as I mentioned, a continuous process. You need commitment. You need empathy. You need genuine desire to really understand and value each team member's unique perspectives. So if you're committed to this journey of like improving your leadership, trying to create meaningful work experiences with others, building an inclusive, diverse team, then please do follow me and like and share and all of that stuff with your fellow leaders, and subscribe with more insights. Today when you look at the social media, there's a lot of this, division between company and, the working population. And with people being so upset that companies are being so unfair. I sit on the other side of the fence where I work with HR leaders, and they share with me the horrifying stories about how candidates behave in interviews, and if only they could record those things, right, and put it up and say, oh, look at how people behave. Because the HR people are also humans, right? And over time, I think maybe they are shaped by their negative experiences and they become defensive and whatnot. I think we can find a middle ground where both people in the organization, senior level, leadership levels, and also the working population, right? We can kind of come together and find a meaningful working relationship so that work doesn't have to be so polarizing. Because I think, whenever there's polarization, it never leads to a good outcome. So remember, when you are out this week, working wherever, just be aware that there will always be perception gaps. The question is, are you aware of what are these perception gaps? And what are you doing to encourage people to close it? And also for yourself, how you can become even better. Thank you, everyone. This has been Ramesh, your organizational change strategist.